Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujaka Charja Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujaka Charja Ashtotar the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Let's get this straight now. This is 19. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of July, 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, text number 62 at the bottom of 701. I think we may need to close that because it can get noisy out there. We can open. Okay. Slight detour, delay. All right. Text 62. Tam eva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat param shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat parang shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat parang shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat parang shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam. Go ahead, Boo. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat parang shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat pasarat parang shantim stanam prapsyasi shasvatam. All right. Time out. It's one of the reasons we have this. So we keep the door closed and still stay cool. You got heating? Now we have cooling.
Nice. Oh, that actually does exist in the temples sometimes.
It's 77 degrees in here.
Simple living and high thinking.
We should have been here in the winter when we didn't have any heat. The last winter we had no heat.
Ooh, hey, I'm from Alaska. I probably won't know.
Oh, you wouldn't mind? No, I didn't know that. Okay. Okay. So, word by word. Tam unto him, eva certainly, sharanam gaccha, surrender. Sarva bhavena, in all respects, bharata, O son of Bharat. Tat prasadat, by his grace, param, transcendental, shantim, peace, stanam, the abode, prapsyasi, you will get, shasvatam, eternal. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, O scion of Bharata, surrender unto him utterly. By his grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. And of course, him is the Supreme Lord situated in everyone's heart, which he explained in the previous verse. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart, and that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature, Rig Veda 1:22-20, as Tad Vishno Padamam Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Paramam Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. Page 702. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya chaham mridisannivishta. The Lord is seated in everyone's heart. So this recommendation that one should surrender unto the Supersoul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Param Brahma Param Dhamma. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas. Page 702. So, Tam, in the beginning of this verse, refers back to the Ishvara, that, from the previous verse. Ishvarak Savabhutanam Viddesheo Janatishtati, that the Lord of all living beings is situated in the heart of Arjuna, and they're wandering within different planets and with different species. Brahmaya Bhutani Yantrarudani Maya. They are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So this is, all of us are included in this statement of Krishna's. The Lord, the Super Soul, is within our hearts, in the vicinity of the heart, situated within, along with the individual soul, and He's accompanying us as we wander throughout planets and universes and different situations, human bodies and subhuman bodies, superhuman bodies. He's always with us, and He's always trying to give us good instruction through the intelligence. But we've stubbornly refused to take that intelligence. So Krishna comes personally, and He's speaking the Bhagavad Gita, He's reinstituting Dharma, He's doing everything He can, which is a lot, in order to give us an auspicious situation so that we can finally do the best thing for ourselves and surrender to Him. So that's why He says in the next verse, surrender unto Him utterly, O Arjuna. By His grace you will attain transcendental peace and supreme and eternal abode. So this is kind of Krishna's winding up, His instruction. He really concludes it in three or four verses hence with text 66. But this is universal instruction for everybody. But no one's hearing it. And even if they happen to get a Bhagavad Gita, if they don't get the Bhagavad Gita that's explained by a pure devotee, they're going to be misguided. Because the Bhagavad Gita is a popular book of philosophy, and it has been misused. Prabhupada says in one lecture that one fellow interpreted it as a conversation between a psychiatrist and his patient. And famously, Dr. Radha Krishnan, in his Bhagavad Gita, which I have on my shelf, I was able to buy it for a few bucks on Amazon, in the purport to text 934, which is going to be repeated practically verbatim here in a couple of verses. Essence of the Gita, one of the essential verses, Manmana bhavamadbhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mamivashyasi satyam te patijane piyosi. Mamivasyati yukpaivam atmanam aparayana. That's how he ends it. Says, just think of me, become my devotee, bow down to me, offer homage to me, offer your sacrifice to me. Certainly you will come to me because you will always be linked to me in yoga. Krishna says it in 934. So famously, if you listen to the lecture, Prabhupada says, Krishna keeps saying me, Manmana, man is a form of me, Manmana, bhava madbhakto, madhyadi, mam namaskaru. There's 4 times he says, think of me, become my devotee. Me means Krishna. In the purport, or he didn't call it that, the commentary, he says it's not to the personality of Krishna that we need to surrender, but to the unborn, eternal, ever-existing within Krishna. And Prabhupada, when he, there's a history behind that. Prabhupada, I think when he was in India, he was trying very hard to work with his God brothers, So at one point, he took up the role of not the president of the temple, but the head of the brahmacharya ashram. He was running that, and sending the boys out on Sankirtan and, taking care of them. So one fella came back, and somehow he had, maybe he had met Dr. Radhakrishnan or whatever, but he told Prabhupada about this statement in the purport. And Prabhupada, he included, there's a book that was compiled of his essays, Bengali essays, that appeared in one of his spiritual masters' magazines over the years. And this book was conceived by Bhakti Chiruswami. He approached Prabhupada with, you know, I guess the magazines with his article, and then he said, we can make a book out of this. And so Prabhupada said, oh, that would be great. You know, so Bhakti Chiruswami translated them all and compiled the book, and then I came across my desk and I edited it up a little bit. And it came out as a book called the Renunciation Through Wisdom. It never really caught on as a mass distribution in America, and maybe the title was a little. But in that book, I remember working on it, there's one of the essays where Prabhupada was dealing extensively with this particular purport. He even quoted the page number of the book. And when I bought my copy through Amazon, sure enough, on that page number, there was that purport. So this is exactly the kind of thing Prabhupada warns about at the beginning of this Bhagavad Gita. If you read, he has an extensive introduction, which he dictated on a tape for several hours. And also he has a very important preface, which starts out with him telling a little story about how when he came to America, one lady asked him if there was a Bhagavad Gita that he could recommend, and frankly, he couldn't recommend any. You know, because they're not being translated and explained by pure devotees, so they're being distorted. So the perfect example of that distortion is this statement by Dr. Radhakrishnan, who at one point I think was the president of India or whatever. But he has some stature and he was somewhat of a scholar. Because this is precisely the kind of misguidance that spoils the whole Bhagavad Gita and makes it impossible for people to really get proper guidance from it. Because that's the last thing you want to say. First of all, there's no inner and outer Krishna. There's no soul in Krishna. He's solid soul. There's even a verse about that. It says, Dehi deva bhago yam neshade vidyate krichit. I think it's from the Puranas somewhere. So, Dehi deha vibhago. A difference between Dehi, the soul who's in the body, and the Deha, the body, which is certainly what we are. We're different from our body. That's the whole first lesson, right? We're the soul and not the body. But for the Ishvara, for the Lord, there's no difference between the body and the soul. Deha dehi vibhago. Vibhago means different. Dehi deha vibhagoyam na ishvare vidyate kvachit. Vidyate means it is never found to be proved that there's any slight difference between Krishna and his inside. So there's no internal to surrender to Krishna. It's surrendering to Krishna, the full personality of Krishna. The problem is that the impersonalists, they want to get around this surrender, that's the supreme absolute truth is a person. And that you're not going to, the motive for practicing yoga, even to the point of liberation, is a personal motive. I want liberation. It's the most valuable thing, much more valuable than winning the lottery, which is almost over $1 billion now. Do you know that they have these super Powerball? It's crazy. So everyone's dreaming, But even if you win it, it's temporary. And in fact, they've done surveys. People who win the lottery turn out to be more miserable than people who lose the lottery. You know that? Because they get suddenly here's an ordinary Joe working on, if he's got a job, he's a taxi driver or Uber or whatever. And suddenly he's got millions of dollars, and his whole identity, he's not ready for that. And all kinds of friends and cousins and people start coming at you and calling you. You have to. They've done studies. People are better off losing the lottery. But that's true of any aspiration for happiness through matter. It's something that you aspire for. Perhaps you have people who achieved a status, whether it's a degree in something or money, fame, whatever it may be. And you idolize them and you hope to achieve like that. And the vast number of people fail, but some achieve. But even if you achieve it, it's a temporary achievement. It's going to be destroyed by time. So to aspire for liberation is the ultimate selfishness. I'm going to leave everybody behind, but I'm going to get free from birth and death, and that'll be my success. But that shows the heart is still very hard, you see. Prahlad Maharaj, there's 2 verses in Prahlad's prayers to Lord Nrsingadev that categorize perfectly the mentality of a pure devotee of God, of Krishna, who is a sadhu, meaning that he is simultaneously tolerant and merciful, compassionate. Meaning that, and so here's what Prahlad says. First, he's speaking, this is almost at the end of his prayers. Wonderful prayers. They're full of all kinds of important instruction. And so he says, Naivod Vijay, Padaduratya Vaitadanyas, Twadviya Gayana Mahamata Magna Chitta. Shocetato Vimukachetasa Indriyata Maya Sukhaya Badamudvahato Vimudhan. So first he says, he's speaking to Nrsingadev, who's now in the gentle mood. The Komala Nrsinga? He's no longer raging. The demigods all came down, to glorify him, and the goddess of fortune was there. He had just killed Hiranyakashipu and all his soldiers, he just tore him apart, his blood everywhere. And he's still raging. And so they're offering their prayers from quite a distance, But no matter what they say, he's not pacified. So finally they say, Prahlad, it's like you can just, this is just a paraphrase. You go off him. He likes you, You just so Prahlad is fearless, especially before Nrsingadev, So he goes up, and as soon as he comes there, Prahlad, then the Nrsingadev, he softens. Here's my dear Prahlad. And Prahlad is not at all afraid, and he even has one of his verses are like that. I'm not afraid of your big, your big fangs and your big teeth and your ears that are, pushing the clouds and all that. Said, no, but I'm afraid of birth and death, like that. So he starts his prayers like that. But in the end, he says, Naivod Vijay. This word udvija is a word that he uses in his first instruction to his father. It's all very dramatic, the whole thing. His father doesn't know that he's a devotee. He sends him to school, and he comes back, and, they don't get a report card, but the same idea. He puts him on his lap, please, smells his head, with sign of affection. What's the best thing you learned today, And so Prahlad, he gives him a verse that has this word in it, and it's straight preaching. The last thing that Hiranyakashipu wants to hear. So he says, Tat sadhu manya. In other words, sadhu, you should know, has several meanings. It means, we know sadhu as satsanga, a devotee. But sadhu can also be like an adjective or an adverb, meaning bravo, or the best thing, Sometimes it's in the books, with some of the verses when Krishna does something, and I say, oh, sadhu, sadhu, which doesn't mean anything more than bravo, bravo, you see? And so devotees picked it up. So some devotee will do something nice. He distributed a lot of books. Says, oh, sadhu, sadhu. And everyone's thinking that, oh, he's calling him a sadhu. He must be a sadhu. But no. So here, sadhu means the best. He wasn't. Tat sadhu manye. In my opinion, Father, the best thing I learned today. Tat sadhu manye asuravarya. Prabhupada makes the point. He doesn't call him Father. He calls him the best of the demons. Asuravarya, the best of best for whom? Prabhupada said, Dehinam, for the embodied soul. The best, not the best thing for, learning Machiavellian politics to become a big demon, but the best thing for every soul to learn. That's sadhamaya sort of dehinam. The souls, embodied souls, who are sada samudvigna diyam sadgrahat. And this udvigna is the same word he uses to describe himself. Naivod vijay. It's a different form of the word. I'm not disturbed at all. But for the ordinary souls, conditioned souls, they're always disturbed, more or less, in this world. What will happen next? Even if it's very peaceful now and everything's okay, but what's going to happen tomorrow? Maybe the economy will crash, or it'll be a big heat wave, or, whatever. So there's always a worry. There's always udvija. Tatsara sudavaya dehinam sadasamudvigna diyama sadgrahat. Udvigna diyam, the consciousness is always disturbed because a sadgrahat. It's such an important, 4 syllables. It's so much knowledge in there. Why is this world so difficult and fraught with so much worry and angst? Because we're taking shelter of for protection and for pleasure of things that are asat, are temporary. Our body is the same thing. It's like a boat, you know. It's like a vehicle. We're riding along. We just had the verse, yantra arudani maya. Yantra is a machine. Arudani means riding. Every living entity is riding on the particular body that you have, you know, human form or an ant, whatever. So, Grahat means holding on for dear life. We're holding on for protection to this fragile little machine, which is bound to be destroyed at a certain point. So that's always like a disturbing thing. So understanding that, Father, now here's the remedy for it. Give up the blind well of materialistic family life, hitva, which obstructs the passage of the soul, the progress of the soul. Atmapatam means that you're stuck there and your soul is just buried in conditions, material conditions. Hitva atmapatam griyamandabu. Give it up, Father. Renounce your kingdom, which is the whole universe, basically. Hitvatmapatam griyaman vanam gato. Go to the forest. And it's understood from the comment as he's talking about Vrindavan. Hitvat vanam gato yad hadamashriyeta. And take shelter of Lord Hari. That's the last thing Hiranyakashipu wanted to hear, you see? So in the present verse, Hiranyakashipu has now been killed. Moving on to his next body of the 3 births that Jai and Vijay were taking before they returned to Vaikuntha. So now in his prayers, after the whole thing is done and his father has been slain, he has this Naivod Vijay. I'm not at all disturbed, Lord Nrsingadev. Naivod Padadorate Vaitaranyas, because you're over on the other side of the Vaitarani river. It's kind of the river between the material and the spiritual world. So you're in the spiritual world, even though you appear here, but that's where you are. And I'm with you, so I'm on the spiritual world also. And so where's there any worry for me? He just proved it. He couldn't be disturbed, even when his father is throwing him into a vat of boiling oil, crushing them under elephants, trying to chop them up, poison them in fire, with everything, throw them off a cliff. Everything they could think of, and he's just thinking of Krishna, and he's protected, completely protected. So that's realization. So he's undisturbed, so where's the pleasure? Then he gives the second line. Anywhere I am, I can sing your powerful glories and dive into an ocean of nectar. You see, whether I'm in boiling oil, I'm sitting before you. You see? In other words, he's so fixed and so absorbed that he is always peaceful and joyful in this world. So that's 2 lines. He's describing himself. But then he says something very interesting. Shocetato, but I'm lamenting. What are you lamenting for? You're already in Vaikuntha, you know. He's lamenting for the conditioned souls out of empathy. Shocetato vimukha-cetasa indriyartha. Every word is important. Vimukha-cetasa means those who have turned their face against you. They've forgotten God. And therefore, they're being victimized by Maya Sukhaya, by the allurement of illusory happiness that Maya offers us. This flickering happiness, you see? Maya Sukhaya Bodham. They're bearing the great burden of trying to enjoy a little flickering happiness. Udbhato, and they're so disturbed and suffering. So these vimudhas, these fools and rascals, I'm not going to give them up. I can't give them up. I have to stay here. And so in the next verse, he clinches it. He describes those who I mentioned, who are simply out for their own liberation. They're not real sadhus. The sadhu is described by Lord Kapila Dev, Tatikshava kanunika sudidak sarvadehinam, to be tolerant and merciful and the friend of all conditioned souls. That's the real sadhu. He himself has realized, just like Prabhupada, he could have just stayed in Vrindavan. Yes, they're empathetic, you know. There's this wonderful phrase describing, I think, Raghunath Das Goswami. Oh no, Sanatana Goswami, written by Raghunath Das. Padadukka dukkhi. Padadukka dukkhi means to feel pain at others' pain. You know, in other words, to be empathetic and want to do something about it, because you know the root of their suffering is their forgetfulness of Krishna. And you have the remedy, you have the knowledge, you have the mantra and everything, so you can give it to. So, Prahlad is the emblem of Paradukkaduki, and he wants to stay. He's a Mahajan, meaning he's a teacher. He embodies the truth of the Vedic wisdom. And so he says, for the most part, Prayena Deva Muniyo, Swavamukti Kama. What a wonderful phrase, Swavimukti Kama. Being lusty for one's own liberation. In other words, it's a selfish desire. And to that end, Maunam, they don't speak. Now they become silent. These are the wandering impersonalists who go to the Himalayas and just meditate on Brahman. Silent. Yes, Maunam Charanti. Vijane, where there's no people. In other words, they go to a solitary place. Napararta Nishtam. They're not at all determined to help others. They're simply out for themselves. And so, and then what happens? Napararta Nishtam. Naitan, but as far as for me, Naitan Vihaya Kripanan, I can't give up these poor fools and rascals, these kripanas. I can't abandon them like those guys. Kripanan, Vimamuksha Eko, simply wanting my own liberation alone. Vimamuksha Eko. Because Nanyam Tadasti Sharanam Brahmato Nupashe. I don't see any other shelter for them or help for them but you. And I have to give them you. Just like Prabhupada, he came and what did he give? He gave Krishna. He gave the knowledge of Krishna, the form, qualities, pastimes, the books, and the means to realize it all, the chanting of the Hari name, Hari Krishna mantra. That's the real sadhu. He himself is, or she is realized and is experiencing and wants to share that experience. So that's what is going on here. And here Krishna is giving this, just surrender unto him utterly. And by that prasada, you will get, by prasada, param shantim, you will attain supreme peace. That's how you will become peaceful. Because Arjuna is very agitated. He's torn between what he should do and what he wants to do. How can I kill my friends? How can I kill my grandfather? No. The prasad, tat prasada, prasada here means grace. You will get the grace of that Lord in the heart, it's me, and param shantim, and have supreme peace. Stanam prapsasi shasvatam, and you will attain your eternal situation with back to Godhead. So that's what he's saying to him. But this is also preaching to us. He's telling us we should also take shelter of him. Okay, any discussion or questions? Go ahead.
So I was just trying to figure out, there's this word here, scion, which I had to look up because I've heard the word, but it means a
scion,
member of royalty or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's how he's referring to
Arjuna.
To Arjuna, okay.
Yeah, he does that sometimes.
Got it.
And the word is Bharata. Okay. That long A is all important. Actually, you get Vasudev, and then you get Vasudev. Vasudev is the son of Vasudev, Krishna.
Okay.
He's known as So those long and short A's are really important.
Oh, okay.
Here's a little funny way to remember that. You've heard it before. You know the mantra, Vancha kalpatarubhishcha kripasindhu behavicha patitanapam. So the tendency is for us Westerners, it's a prayer. It's a bowing down to and honoring all the other devotees. We sing it, do it every morning. So the tendency is for the long A's to become short. Sometimes the short A's become long, like Sadbi, that in the penultimate verse, the next to last verse of the Guru Vashtaka song, we get Sakshad Hadit Veda Samasta Shastraya Uktas Tatabhav Yata Eva Sadbi, because it's this sat, but it sounds like it must be a sadhu word, so it's sadbi, but it's not sadbi. But the more common mistake is for the longs to become short, and so you find, and that's critical in the last verse of that song, Yasya Prasadat. There's that word prasadat again, meaning grace. Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado. By the grace and the mercy of the spiritual master, you will get the grace of Krishna. If the spiritual master is pleased with you, because his whole mission is simply giving you instruction to please Krishna. So he's pleased, then Krishna is automatically pleased. But then the second line is Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutopi. You notice the Yasya Prasad, Yasya, because it's Yasya Aprasadan. by his non-mercy.
And
by
what you mean by long A is when it has that
at
line
moment,
over
yes,
it, right?
And the pronunciation rather than becomes
Gotcha.
So now let's go to Vanchakalpatarubhyascha. Okay. So what you hear often, like I've explained this once in a festival in New Vrindavan, big temple, a lot of devotees there. They used to have a yearly festival called the Festival of Inspiration. And one time, I don't know if they wanted me to lead that Vanchakalpatarubhyascha and then to say the announcements. So before saying the announcement, they gave me a sheet to read. I said, all right, here's a little instruction on how to pronounce that verse, because if you don't pronounce it that way, you're saying something completely different. So vancha means desire, and kalpatadu is kind of redundant. Vancha, kalpatadu. A kalpatadu is a desire tree. But anyway, the word is vancha for desire. But vanchaka means to cheat. But the short is vanchaka. So if you say vanchakalpatarubhyascha, vanchakalpatarubhyascha, you mix it up. Alpa means small. So vanchaka alpataru means a small cheating tree. I offer my obeisance to all the assembled small cheating trees, rather than desire trees. Just from that little long and short mixed up, you see. So be careful of the long and shorts. So the Bharata is a scion of Bharat, means he descended. But sometimes you read son of Bharat. I said, oh boy, we're going to fix it, because I make changes in the books.
Specifically a royal descendant. Is that implied?
Yeah. So it's an honorable, it's honorific. So, but sometimes you see son of Bharat. So I said, oh my God, does that have to be fixed and make all those sons into scions? Which is, precise. But then I looked up son, and even son can also mean descendant. Because he's a son. Right. It stays as it is. Yeah. All right, shall we go on?
I had one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Hope it's not too much. So you mentioned the concept of like impermanence and everything being like, you can't really attain much happiness because everything's impermanent. So when you mentioned that, I just the term planned obsolescence came to mind, and that almost because of the nature of existence, that it's planned obsolescence is more like a universal law.
Yes,
because it applies to not only the vehicles and the technology and stuff that we receive, contemporary technology, but it also applies to us.
These machines.
Yeah, these machines
also become obsolete. Yes.
So I just wanted to comment on that.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, it's the old dichotomy between sat and asat. Sat and asat. Sat is eternal. Sat is real because it's eternal. The whole spiritual world is Sat. Sat Chidananda, right? It doesn't change. It doesn't degrade. No one gets old up there. No one gets bored and said, okay, I've had enough, this cowarding already. What can we do something else? No, it doesn't work like that. Is that it's ever fresh. The experience of your particular relationship with Krishna is always fresh and new every day. Whereas on the material plane, people separate all the time, or someone dies who you love, and it just wrecks your life. And it's a constant churning of change. You become attached, and then it's ripped away from you. Another prayer of Prahlad, because everything is in there. This is really one of my favorites of all time. He's analyzing the situation of the material world, and he says, I think some verses, I get to review them more. Yasmat priya viyoga sayoga janma shokagdina sakaldayona shadayamana. 2 lines, he describes the whole situation in the material world. Yasmat priya viyoga sayoga. So in Sanskrit they have this convention where you may have a list and then it matches up to another list, and you can understand what's going on. So yasya apriya matches up with viyoga, which means taken away. Your connection is broken with those things which are dear to you. In other words, just think about it. The most dear thing is your body, but also your intimate relatives, your wife, kids, everything. But eventually, the relationship is broken. Either you die or they go away or something like that. So what other things that do? Your health, that is taken away. You have the huge medical institution, trillions of dollars to try to give you back what you lost, you know. So yasmat, from this twofold phenomenon, that which is dear is ripped away from you, and that which is abominable is forced upon you. So that's the apriya yoga, you see? Apriya means not dear, is forced upon you. Yasmat priya viyoga sayoga janma, born of these two things. Shokagnina, there's a fire of lamentation. Everybody is through it, or going through it, or they're about to go through it. They'll eventually go through it because of these two things. And not only in human life, but sakata yonishu, in all other forms of life also. The dogs have their situation, and they have their mate and everything, and then it's over, and there's anxiety, or they get sick, whatever. So that's the first two lines. And then yasma priyapi yoga janma shokagnana sakata yonishu dahyamana. I'm burning in this fire of lamentation due to these two phenomena. And so in the human form of life especially, we have all kinds of remedies or counteractions for the dukkha, right? The animals don't have a big medical thing, and everything. It's just, they just do get what they... But we have that. So that's called the dukkha aushadam, the remedy for the misery. But then it says dukkha aushadam tadapi dukkam. The remedies themselves bring more misery. Even just if you want to take aushadam to be literally drugs, pharmaceuticals. So I was reading, this is years and years ago, I was in the movement, but I think I was at the laundromat and I opened the Reader's Digest or something, and there was an ad, a full-page ad. It's a small format. I don't know if they have it anymore, but there's a magazine, and they're advertising some drug. I think it was antidepressant or something. And you turn the page, and there's 2 pages of side effects that you have to be careful about. Well, I think I don't know if it was that, but it was another one that said one of the side effects is death. Yeah, great, thank you very much. So that's what he's saying. And how can we see it? The dukkha is, I'm far away from where I want to be, and to get there I have to get on a horse and ride a horse wagon. It takes 3 days, So that's a dukkha. So we have the dukkha aushadam. Get in the car, and drive, all right, we got but how to get across the whole nation? Eisenhower, he pushed for the interstate road system that we have, hundreds of billions of dollars maybe. Oh, now we got the roads, we got the cars and everything, Yeah. And then a few years later, everyone's got a car, and they're burning all this fossil fuels, and now we get the heat wave, and people are dying, and we got floods in Vrindavan, and the Antarctica is melting. So in other words, the aushadhi for the dukkha of wanting to get where you want to go fast, okay, we got that covered. Now it causes more dukkha. So the so-called remedy becomes a cause of more pain. So and all because of atadhyaham, because this is a phrase in the end of the third line. Because I'm thinking I'm something I'm not. Atadhya aham. My mentality is that I am atat. I'm thinking I'm this body. In other words, I'm thinking I'm a product of matter. So that's the root cause of it. So what's the solution? That was 3 lines. Now the 4th line, he gives a solution to the problem. Bhuman, oh great Lord, Bhuman brahmame padameta badasya yogam. This wandering soul suffering all these things, please instruct him in your dasya yoga, your bhakti yoga. He's speaking directly to Lord Nrsingadev. So he gives a solution. The solution is not some material thing, but it is solve the whole problem, change the whole mentality, and go back to the spiritual world. So that's taste of Prahlad. And
Third line, even if you get healed, you're still going to suffer again.
Yeah. There's no exactly. In other words, part of the problem is the illusion that you can have a material solution to the problem. That's the main thing, isn't it? The problem is spiritual. Is that you're misidentifying with the body. You're a spiritual entity trying to get peace and happiness in the material atmosphere, and it's incompatible, impossible. Okay, let me press a button here so I don't run out of juice. All right, Hare Krishna. So, okay, we have time for one more. And this is text 63, I think we're on, yeah. Is that right? Yeah. Iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyatadam maya Vimershaita Sheshena Yatejasi Tatakuru. Thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully and then do what you wish to do. Purport. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahmabhuta. One who is in the Brahmabhuta condition is joyful. So this goes all the way back to text 54, Brahmabhuta Prasannatma. Prasannatma means very joyful soul. One whose Brahmabhuta condition is joyful, he never laments, nor does he desire anything. That is due to confidential knowledge. Krishna also discloses knowledge of the Supersoul. This is also Brahma knowledge, knowledge of Brahman, but it is superior. Here the word Yatejasi Tatakuru, as you like you may act. These words indicate that God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the Supersoul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the Supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Arjuna is being directly ordered by the Personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the best interest of the living entities. It is not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. So he's described more confidential knowledge, but now he's going to describe the most confidential knowledge again, which he already described at the end of chapter 9, and we're coming up on the key verse at text 65, which I think we'll leave for Monday, because actually we can probably conclude the book next week. But I wanted to leave a little time for the poems I didn't get to read yet last night, so let me, if I can conclude here. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay.
Would you say that, like, when the way that it sounds like discrimination is explained here, would you say that's like the consciousness at the base level, like the conscience, our internal conscience? We know what's right and wrong here. We know. Right?
Yeah, I think it's more like purified intelligence. When you agree to hear and to apply what you're learning, then you become purer, and your real intelligence becomes spiritualized, purified, and with that strength you can then direct the mind and the. But let me just read that, because we're going to run out of time again, like yesterday. Okay. Okay, so this is a little song that Rupa Goswami wrote, and it has a very nice beat to it, and it's very nice. It's short. Here's the refrain. Krishna bhavandam vande manmanasamadakadamapayi nijapatapankachamakarande. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat. Please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. Text, verse 1. Yadapi samadashu vidadapi pashyati nadamandaka gamaricham idamichami nishammitavachata tadapika bhavata vicham. Though even Brahma, deep in trance, cannot achieve his goal, a glimpse of your effulgent toenails, soothing to the soul. Because, O Lord, I've heard of your compassion's wondrous waves, that very vision is the only boon my poor heart craves. Krishna bhavandam vande manmanasamadakadama payanita patapankachamakarande. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. Bhaktira danchadi yadyapi madhava natthaya mamatila matri padameshwadata tadapitavate kadurkata ghanana vidatri. All right. Sorry about that. O Madhava, despite great effort, I have not attained a drop of pure devotion. This has brought me untold pain. Yet though it seems impossible to ever fill this need, your monumental power gives me hope I shall succeed. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. I am of a Lord Yada Sanatan Kaladad Buddha Sabadam, Nivasati Nitya Mahamantinibindan Moranimasaram. Today, eternal Lord, please fix my mind upon your feet, the reservoir of endless mellows, wonderful and sweet. I pray that for eternity my mind may there reside, to relish luscious honey that defeats ambrosious pride. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat, please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. And Prabhupada actually includes the translation of this song in a purport. I think it's in the second canto. He was familiar with this song. Okay.
I find it amazing that it rhymes in Sanskrit and in English. How is that?
Well, I can tell you how the English. I used a dictionary and a rhyming dictionary and a thesaurus with those three books. And
I see. So
yeah.
you can kind of pick like an appropriate word.
Yeah, that will rhyme. Yeah, it's a whole thing. All right, this is now a real quick one. Oh, no, we don't have time. We'll have to put this one off. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.